So this is going to be a discussion video about the recent update, Tales of the God Wars, as well as the Twitch stream that followed it. And so I'm just gonna start things off about the stream, as it showed quite a bit about what the God Wars dungeon will look like, and also what it entails about the bosses and other things that you have to do in there. And so I'll start with that, and then I'll move into the lore about each of the 4 factions that we got from the actual update. So from the stream we learned that there is going to be a kill count, and I'm not sure if it's 40 like it is for the original God Wars, but it is a likely guess, though you can get a higher kill count if you kill them quickly enough, which I believe they said it could go as high as 3 times, where if you kill one you get 3 kill count. So that will increase the speed that you can enter the God Wars dungeon bosses areas. And so there will also be areas that are controlled by the factions, although this can be changed by you or just probably also by the game in general. So whatever faction you decide to aid, you can help it to gain control of these areas. And you can all see the faction logos on the towers that appear in those areas, and I'll show you who's currently in control of it. And from what I can tell, there'll probably be something which makes the focus of that area's creatures, monsters of that faction. So like they had showed Sliske and Zaron's tower controlled areas. And so basically from that we can see that most of them were Boros Whites, or not Boros Whites, but just the regular Whites that were seen in Missing Presumed Death, or the ancient warriors, mages, and rangers that can be found in the Frozen Prison in the original God Wars dungeon. And so basically that's pretty good, considering that there is going to be a desire to get the high kill count as possible, and hopefully there won't be too many of other factions in those areas, because if you're trying to use area attacks, then you're just going to end up getting unnecessary kills, and also it could make it that much harder for you, like it is in the original God Wars dungeon, where it's all kind of, although there seems to be sort of focused areas for each of the factions except for Zamorak, but if you really want to just get one faction kills, hopefully they'll be spread out enough that you can just do those ones with area of effects abilities. And also there are, as soon as you get into the God Wars Dungeon 2, you will find that there are 4 faction representatives that you'll be able to join, to what I understand. And for these faction representatives, I'm a bit unsure about how I feel about it. On the one hand, or at least in a way about who they are. In a way, I hope that they are someone that we already know, because quartermasters in the world events have been kind of lackluster, and they haven't really contributed much. And especially in the Tuska Khan's World event, most of them we had already seen, but the way that they were portrayed in that just kind of didn't make them feel as great as they could have been. So, and if you're trying to get someone to join your faction, and this could possibly have an effect on Slisuke's endgame, so you really want to make sure that you get them to join your faction, then they should make it so that they do make a compelling case for it. And part of me feels that we could probably do that better with established characters, though. On the other hand, you could also do that well with new characters, like with Kami in the Bird and the Beast World event, where she told her backstory about how she come to join Armadillo. So, if we're gonna be doing something like that, then the best thing might be to just add new people, though it's a bit of a toss-up for me, so whatever happens, we'll see when the God Wars dungeon opens, and we'll get back to that, and if they did a good job on that or not. And also, there is a crystal that you get from the Tales of the God Wars, and so with that you can get a reputation for the faction that you decide to join, and so you can also get rewards for your reputation. So if you're going to be joining a faction, and although for the more hardcore lorehounds, they'll probably want to keep with one faction, though if you want to get all of the rewards, you may have to switch factions. So, although that wasn't the case in Tuska Khan, because you were all working together, but in this case, I hope that they do make it so that you can get all the rewards even if you aren't a part of that factions, because in the past with world events, it's kind of been lackluster and been really difficult to get points and rewards, and since you were only allowed to work on one side, and if you changed to the other side, then you would end up costing yourself a whole bunch of points that could have been used. And I remember with the Bird and the Beast event, I had tried to switch a bit in order to get the rewards, and in the end, I needed to go to the God Wars dungeon afterwards to get the rest of the Bando's War Priest armor. I had only managed to get the gloves and the boots. And so, in terms of the rewards, again, I hope that they do make it so that all rewards are available to people, although given the past history, I'm not counting on that happening, so probably going to be where you join a faction and then you can only get rewards from that faction, since all the factions are working against one another. And so this whole month is kind of dedicated to God Wars Dungeon 2, with the exception of the Easter event, which is happening tomorrow on Monday. At least that's what I believe it to be. That is the usual day after all. And so for tomorrow, they're also going to be releasing a community event, which is similar to the Lost Sword of King Radalin event back in, I believe, October. And so that is where I get my namesake from. And also it was quite a bit of hefty experience, even if you were limited in how much you could get based on the number of tools you can get. And although I'm not a fan that part of it is available through the treasure hunter, I do like that you can use your loyalty points in order to get more tools, especially considering that I do have over 200k points. So hopefully they're not all that expensive so that I can get quite a bit, because I haven't really needed another reason for my points. And so also in the week after, and the community event does go for 5 days, after which it will close, and all you need in order to participate in it is that you need to have a subscription, and I don't believe that you have to have any specific levels or that you have to complete Tales of the God Wars dungeon, although if there is a requirement for that, I will put a notice about that in the description. And as for next week, they are going to just be doing a small thing where you have to use your divination skills in order to unlock the portal that's blocking your way into the dungeon, and so that the week after you can finally enter the God Wars dungeon 2 and participate in it. And overall, I don't see this part as all that exciting, considering that, well, for one, I already have 99 divination, and also it isn't as optional as the community event where you can train either combat or skilling, and also for the most part it's hardly even worth giving it an update, because the Jagex team could just do that on their own. It's basically just an excuse to give people divination and experience. Although that might not be bad for most people, I do feel that it is a bit of a waste of an update, and I do hope that there is more for that week. Although I'm not sure if there will be, considering that there hasn't been much else in the behind the scenes to show off, and so I'm just gonna go to the behind the scenes for March, and we're gonna see if there's anything else. Well, there is the Chronicle beta as well as the invention update, and so, but the Chronicle isn't really connected to the game, and the invention is only to add more things to more gear to it. And so all in all, I don't believe that the third week will be anything special, so if there is going to be anything for it, it's going to I really hope that they spend the most part of it just doing a whole bunch of patch notes, because it would be, we haven't gotten a patch notes expansion in a long time, and at least to my knowledge, and so it would be nice if they're gonna do such a small week that they do use it to either get the God Wars Dungeon 2 as ready as they can, or to just give out a whole bunch of patch notes and overall the Easter event probably it is connected to Slipscape, although it doesn't seem to have anything to do with the God Wars Dungeon 2. So, but I understand that Easter is coming, and so it's pretty much compulsory at this point. And it is connected to the actual Easter, so even if it is connected to Slipscape as well, so that is a pretty good thing, considering that some of the updates for holidays in the past haven't been all that great or connected to holidays in the past, like the Cabbage Face Punch Bonanza event a few years ago. And so I can't really say all that much about the faction bosses area because they haven't really shown all that much. It still seems to be in the testing phases and a bit of the design. Although they did show in what they call an art stream, which showed off how they got Naimura to move, and that was pretty cool, and I will be putting a link to that in the description, as well as a link to the video about the God Wars Dungeon 2 and when they went through it, so that'll be there as well. But for right now, I'm just going to move on to the lore about God Wars Dungeon 2. So I'm going to be going through the God Wars Dungeon bosses in order, and for the first journal, it was the Serenus faction boss, Hellware, and for me it's a bit of an interesting one, but it's also my least favorite because Hellware is from the Severe clan, which is what the clan that we found out about in the Light Within, and basically we thought that they were all on Terragard, but apparently there were a few that were trapped back on Gielinor, and so Hellware is basically trying to get revenge on Grigorovic for the Severe clan else that he had tortured and killed. And so this is a bit of a problem for me because it is more of a story and lore about Grigorovic than it is the Hellware, and because we learn about all the terrible things that he had done even while he was human, and so it's just a weird story about how Hellware is and how much different he is from the rest of the elves, because while all the other elves are focused on harmony and peace and growth, and the Severe clan has become basically obsessed with revenge, so that does make it a little more interesting. However, there is a point as to why they decided to just make Hellware's elfin form basically a copy-paste of Lord Amlod. And as for his bestial form, it's not really said how he became like that or how he acquired the ancient magic that allowed him to do that. I would have really liked it. They could have made it a bit longer so that they could explain how he's able to do it. And yeah, that's kind of a running theme throughout the tale. That one was overall good. It did leave quite a few questions for all of the tales that really would have been nice to know. And also then, however, it does begin a correlation between the factions, at least between the Serenus faction and the Sliskian faction, and basically Hellware is a sort of different type of elf, as he changes into this animal form, but I would have thought it could have been more interesting if he had just become like one of the shapeshifters, seaware elves that we see on Tardiad, but that he had become able to control it, and also while maintaining his sanity. And also, there is another question that it doesn't seem like Saren even knows about the Sewer clan elves on Gillinor, even though they are using a part of her crystal as well, just like all the other elves are. And as established when you ask her about Brassica Prime, you learn that even in the crystal form, she is able to know what's going on around her. So I really don't get that. I really hope that once God Wars Dungeon 2 comes out, that we do get a little more information from the various factions, because it is possible, since with the exception of Sliske, all three other factions have their gods in a sort of base, with Saren in the Tower of Voices, Zaros in the Sanctum, and Zamorak at the bottom of Demonheim in 461. And also, it doesn't make much sense about how the elven clans have become so distraught that nobody even thought about the Sewer clan, and still seem to have no idea about them, because they're fighting for the anima, or at least control of it, but no one seems to know about it other than those participating in it. So it is a bit of a disappointment that Saren, Zamorak, Zaros don't seem to know anything about it, though maybe Zaros does, because he is the god of fate, and there probably isn't much actions that his followers would make without his permission. And like with Grigoroving, it's pretty much obvious that Sliske tells him whatever he has to do, and he'll do it. So, and Grigoroving probably goes along with it, because a battle typically ends causing a lot of people to die, and to which he can use to increase his power. But yeah, Hellware, and just not as expensive as I would have liked on his lore, especially about how he's able to do the transformation, or why he could have just become something a bit more like what we saw on Tardiad, where he just has crystals coming out of his body and he's able to use them as weapons. And hopefully that we do get a lore journal thing dropped from the God Wars Dungeon bosses, so that it does go into more detail about each of them. But as for now, it's really a bit of a mystery as to how he became stuck on Gillinor, and also how he's able to do that transformation, and how the other Sewer elves came into contact with Grigoroving. So I would like for more expansion on him, and hopefully there is a lore journal or. So for the next faction, it's about Grigorovic and the Sliskian faction, and basically overall it tells a story about how Grigorovic was a man who was terribly fearful of death, and how he didn't want to die from whatever fatal illness he had. At this part, I don't feel that it was necessary to say whatever it was that he was dying of. It just doesn't matter all that much in terms of the story. So it's something that isn't descriptive, but it's something that one can let through. And it's also told how he's the one who had kidnapped and tortured the Sewera clan elves in order to try and find an answer to their long life. And frankly, I think that he would have been able to find an answer had the answer actually been biological as opposed to magical, since the elven long lives comes from Saren's magic. And also it comes, I believe it was a song that Saren made that had caused the elves' lives to increase. And so since Grigorovic was human, he probably wouldn't have been able to find it out, since elven singing is at a level that's unhearable to humans. And also it has been thousands of years since Saren had done the song that gave the elves the long life, so he probably wouldn't be able to know it even if no matter how much he tortured them or dissected them or in all of his experiments. And so it basically, after finding out that he couldn't find the answer to the long lives of the elves, he had gone to Sliske and tried to bargain a deal about finding a way to extend his life. And Sliske basically killed him and then restored him in his new God Wars Dungeon 2 body, which, although it's pretty much immortal, or more like the Majorat body, his body isn't like the Barrows brothers' bodies, where it needs to be sustained by the deaths of others. So he has to continue being a monster in order to keep himself from dying. And overall, it's basically a weird thing about how Grigorovic is this person who is terribly fearful of death and was willing to do anything to keep himself alive. And although it's not known what he would have done if he had just been able to come back to life with a longer lifespan with no strings attached, Sliske does mention that he was already a monster, so it's quite possible that he would just continue to killing people regardless of whether or not he had changed into his current form. And also it's a bit of a mystery why Sliske decided to remake him as that, or if that is just a manifestation of his inner self that Sliske brought to the surface. Although not really something that really needs to be explored, in my opinion, because Sliske basically does whatever he wants, and he was going to revive him in whatever way he could. And on social media, I got into a discussion about how Sliske's story with Grigorvig matches that of the Barrows brothers. However, I disagree with that because with Grigorvig, he does have a more interesting story because it does, like the Barrows brothers, it does have a purpose as to why they became like that, but with Grigorvig, it's a lot more interesting because unlike the Barrows brothers who mindlessly do whatever Sliske tells them to and do pretty much nothing else, Grigorvig does keep his personality in mind, and so it makes for an overall more interesting character than the Barrows brothers. So in the end, Grigorvig is pretty much the perfect person that could be Sliske's general for the God Wars Dungeon 2, and it is an overall better choice as opposed to Hellware for the Saren faction. And I would just like to say that Grigorvig, his weapons, although his weapons, I do wish that they were ranged weapons, where as opposed to the ending of the BTS for the Easter event, it showed that he does use them as a melee weapon. I was kind of hoping that they were like level 80 throwing ranged weapons, because that would have been an interesting way of adding level 80 thrown weapons that aren't made of crystal, and also it would have been a good way to show off a good possible reward from the quest, because now it just seems like we're just going to be getting more two-handed or dual-wielded slashing weapons, and we already have quite a few of those with the chaotics and long swords and chaotic claws. Although they're not chaotic, it does make a bit of a letdown, considering that it would have been nice to have some thrown weapons, considering that there are quite a few monsters that are weak to thrown, and there are, I believe the highest level is with Death Lotus darts, which can only be acquired from player-owned ports after acquiring all 4 scrolls, having 92 fletching and 85 raged. So this would not only would it be a level 80 version, but it would also give alternative to attaining thrown weapons. And so I do hope that we get some clarification as to what we're supposed to be doing with them, and if there'll even be a reward. Though that'll probably be as soon as the... So the first story is about the twin Furies, Nymora and Avarice, who serve Zamorak, and there are a couple of demons who Zamorak had assigned to kill any Oathbreakers, particularly the Illuyanka. And so they had gone on a mission to kill Morvanen, and also, however, it was unknown that she had laid an egg, and however, Grigorvig had managed to kill their third sister in after its transformation, presumably. And so the Twin Furies wanted revenge against him, but they were unable to do that because Zamorak had ordered that they have to complete their mission by killing the Ilonka child of Morvanen. And so while they do still want revenge against Grigorovic, they do say that they will obey Zamorak's order and will go after the Ilonka first. And overall, and they're kind of twins, and because they have basically the same, they're basically symmetrical, and so the only real difference is in their coloring, where one's red and the other is blue. And as I have in a photo or in an image I made from editing the Twin Furies, I predicted that the third Fury was purple with that was more balanced and symmetrical in totality between the three of them. And so there is a bit of a mystery behind how they came upon Grigorovic, and also why, even though they were supposedly so powerful that Zamorak said that they were basically an extension of himself, one of them was killed. And so it would be an interesting idea if we could figure out how those two groups came into contact. And basically I would like to figure out more about how they came into being the ones who were chosen to take out the Ilonka and the Oath Keepers. However, and also mentions how Morvanen was actually killed by hellhounds, not the Furies themselves. So I would like to figure out how they were able to do all that while still managing for one of them to die, and because they're supposedly incredibly powerful. And although Grigorovic did become more powerful after being transformed by Sliske, it's hard to imagine that he becomes powerful as one of Zamorak's followers, or three of them actually, who have become as powerful and were always powerful due to their demonic nature. And also it is a bit of a change in Zamorak's demeanor, since he basically said that they had to complete their mission before they could do anything else, and that's kind of odd considering that Zamorak himself in Dishonor Among Thieves said mentioned how the mission wasn't a complete loss because they become stronger through the chaos. And so that entailed in that mission. So I wonder why they decided to go that route, and especially considering that this is a quest done by Ollie, who's actually did quite well with Zamorak in Dishonor Among Thieves, and even with the post-quest dialogue where he was a bit more forceful about why he did what he did to Char, and also about his desire for vengeance against others. So there was always an aspect that he understood missions and why they couldn't be completed because of the ending. And I understand that he was a general in Zaros' army, and I do know that generals can basically keep that mindset even after they leave the army, but it's one thing to be a general and another to be a leader, in a sense, because generals do need to understand when things are going too far. And in the case of the Furies, it is quite understandable how they would be frustrated about the death of their sister. So I really do hope, as I've mentioned before, that the gods that their factions are participating do get a bit of knowledge about what's going on, and also that they had some dialogue about what has transpired and what we have learned, and basically really on the god surfacing overall, and telling us what their opinion of what's going on happens sooner rather than later in general, because it would be interesting that they neglected to add Saradomin, Armadale, the Godless, because I'm pretty sure that all three of them would also have their own reasons for participating in this, even just for their own reasons. So I do hope that we get some dialogue, because this is something that has been hyped, and what we would expect that it does get the full treatment, sort of like we did with Fate of the Gods after Zaros' return. With that quest, they basically put out all the stops. But this is involve a Zarosian as well, which Zarosians have always been known to get quite a bit of post-quest dialogue, so maybe that will help inch you towards getting that. But as for right now, I really am not betting on it, because there have been quite a few times where dialogue has been lacking. So that's basically all I had to say about that one. So the last general is the Zarosian general Vindicta, who's also the Iluyonka, that's the child of Morvanan, the dragon rider who was killed by the Furies, and also about Gorvek, the dragon who had become Vindicta's partner and had basically raised her. And so Vindicta basically has become obsessed with rage from her birth and desires revenge against the Furies who killed her mother. And so, while there isn't a whole lot explained about Vindicta, it basically shows that Gorvang speaking to Vindicta's egg and them emerging from the cave. It does explain that Vindicta has been raised as being quite a bit larger and having a tougher temperament than other Ilyanka, and also that she has basically become the general of the Zerosian faction, though has never explained how she did that, considering Zaros has only recently returned, and how he even knew about Vindicta, considering that she wasn't around during the Second Age, unlike most of his other followers who have returned to him. So there is a bit of a mystery behind that, and I do hope that it gets more expanded upon in the future. And the interesting thing is that it's actually her mother, Morvanen, who has more of a story, and also her father is Hannibus, the Ilyanka that we help out in One of a Kind. And it is a bit interesting because Morvanen had defected to Zaros, despite her Hannibus being, when you speak to him in One of a Kind, he mentions that he considers Zaros a true god and all the others fakes. And so their story is actually a bit more interesting than Vindicta's, considering we don't really have all that much on her. However, she has grown to be larger than Ilyanka and also more battle trained, and because of her anger, she does have a tougher temperament than is typical of the Ilyanka. So I really do hope that they expand more on her, the most, because she really doesn't have all that much, except that her parents were killed by the Furies, and then that's pretty much it. And so overall, it is interesting about Gorvang, because Gorvang's a dragon, and even speaking telepathically, Mr. Mordaunt, the red dragon in the museum, mentions that most of his kind is too consumed to talk. So even with telepathy, that would be kind of hard for a dragon to speak due to their rage. And Gorvang was even further enraged because of the death of Morvanen, and so it is an interesting thing how Gorvang is still able to manage the sanity to talk even telepathically to Vindicta. So overall, that's pretty much what is known about Tales of the God Wars so far. I don't expect that we'll be getting much more in the next 2 weeks with the community event and the divination portal opening, but if there is, that'll be in the final update, where we can enter the God Wars Dungeon 2. And so I'm pretty much gonna not make another discussion video until after that, unless we get something else in a Twitch stream or something similar. So until next time, I'll see you later. Update comes live, so for the God Wars Dungeon 2.